A wealthy CEO's mother set up his EX for an accident, but what she discovered left her speechless. The 24-year-old billionaire Marcus Blackwood thought he knew everything about his pregnant wife Zara. He was wrong, dead wrong, and his mother Victoria's attempt to destroy the woman she called unworthy trash was about to backfire in the most catastrophic way possible. Have you ever wondered what happens when greed meets its match? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The paramedic's hands froze over the unconscious woman's wrist. What he discovered on that medical bracelet would expose the most shocking family secret of the century. 24-year-old billionaire Marcus Blackwood thought he knew everything about his pregnant wife Zara. He was wrong, dead wrong. And his mother Victoria's attempt to destroy the woman she called unworthy trash was about to backfire in the most catastrophic way possible. Have you ever wondered what happens when greed meets its match? When a mother's obsession with control collides with forces beyond her comprehension. This story will challenge everything you believe about family, power, and the lengths people will go to protect their secrets. The ambulance rushed through Chicago's streets, sirens wailing as paramedics fought to save a life. Inside, Victoria Blackwood sat rigid, her manicured fingers trembling as she watched the medical team work on the woman she'd just tried to eliminate. The car accident she'd carefully arranged was supposed to solve her problem forever. Instead, it was about to create her worst nightmare. "Wait," Dr. Chun whispered, his face draining of color as he examined the medical alert bracelet. "This can't be right." The rare genetic marker he discovered exists in fewer than 200 people worldwide, all from one bloodline. The Ashford dynasty, Britain's most powerful banking family, worth $50 billion and Victoria's biggest business rival for the past decade. As realization hit, Victoria's world crumbled. The gold-digging nobody she'd spent 2 years trying to destroy wasn't some random foster kid from the streets. She was the missing Ashford heiress. The granddaughter Lord Edmund Ashford had been desperately seeking for 22 years. The woman Victoria had just tried to murder was worth more than the entire Blackwood Empire. But here's where the story gets truly explosive. Victoria didn't just attempt to kill a billionaire heiress. She tried to eliminate the one person who could bridge two of the world's most powerful families. And now, with Zara fighting for her life in that hospital bed, carrying Marcus's child, every secret was about to surface. Do you think Victoria deserves what's coming to her? Can love survive when built on lies? And what happens when a mother's worst enemy becomes her own family? Stay with me as we dive deep into this web of deception, betrayal, and the shocking truth that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about family loyalty. This isn't just a story about wealth and power. It's about what happens when the past refuses to stay buried. Hit that follow button, because what unfolds next will change how you see family dynamics forever. Now, let me take you back to where this incredible journey began. Marcus Blackwood stood behind floor-to-ceiling windows on the 42nd floor, watching Chicago's skyline blur into evening shadows. At 24, he commanded a tech empire worth $2.3 billion. Yet the weight of success felt heavier than any burden he'd ever carried. His phone buzzed for the 8th time in an hour. "Victoria, again." "Marcus, darling, the Henderson merger requires your signature by midnight." His mother's voice cut through the speaker with surgical precision. "And don't forget the charity gala tomorrow. Senator Williams specifically requested your presence." He loosened his ash-gray tie, the same shade as every suit in his custom wardrobe. Victoria insisted on consistency. Image was everything in their world. Every detail controlled, every relationship calculated, every decision filtered through her ironclad expectations. The Blackwood Industries logo gleamed from buildings across the city, a testament to his achievements. Yet standing in his corner office, surrounded by awards and accolades, Marcus felt utterly hollow. Success had become his prison, wealth his chains. "The Johnson account closed today," he said, changing the subject. "Biggest tech acquisition in company history. Wonderful. I've arranged dinner with the Morrison family next week." Their daughter Catherine just returned from Oxford. Brilliant girl, impeccable breeding. Marcus gripped the phone tighter. At 24, he was already being positioned for the next strategic marriage, the next calculated alliance. Victoria's plans extended decades into the future, mapping out his life like a corporate takeover. "I need to go," he muttered. "Don't be late for the board meeting tomorrow." And Marcus? Wear the Navy suit. It projects authority. The call ended, leaving him alone with the city lights and his suffocating thoughts. He'd built an empire, conquered markets, earned respect from industry titans twice his age. Yet he couldn't remember the last time he'd made a single decision purely for himself. His reflection stared back from the window, piercing blue eyes that once held dreams, now reflecting only duty and obligation. Somewhere in that building, hundreds of employees depended on his leadership. Shareholders trusted his vision. Victoria expected his obedience. But what did Marcus Blackwood want? The answer to that question was about to walk through his door. Zara Martinez stepped through the marble foyer of the Blackwood mansion, her breath catching at the sheer opulence surrounding her. Crystal chandeliers cast dancing lights across Persian rugs worth more than most people's homes. Oil paintings from masters she'd only seen in textbooks lined the walls. "Stay focused," she whispered to herself, adjusting the emerald green dress that somehow made her feel both elegant and out of place. At 21, Zara had worked every job imaginable: waitress, tutor, house cleaner, even dog walker. But this position as part of the household staff offered something precious: stability. Enough income to finally stop worrying about next month's rent, with extra to send to the foster care facility where younger kids still waited for families. "You must be the new girl," an older woman said, eyeing Zara's appearance with obvious skepticism. "Mrs. Blackwood expects perfection. No mistakes, no drama, no personal conversations with family members." Zara nodded, though something about the warning felt oddly specific. She'd grown up invisible in the foster system. Keeping her head down and avoiding attention had become second nature. As she explored the mansion's endless corridors, fragments of memory stirred. The Italian marble reminded her of something, though she couldn't place what. When she passed an original Monet, she found herself critiquing the brushwork in fluent French, startling a passing gardener who only spoke English. Where had she learned French? Or Italian, for that matter? Foster care hadn't exactly provided language lessons. In the library, floor-to-ceiling books called to her like old friends. Philosophy, literature, art history, subjects that felt familiar despite her chaotic upbringing. She pulled down a leather-bound volume of Nietzsche, reading passages that resonated deeply, as if she'd encountered them before. "Whoever fights monsters should be careful not to become a monster," she read aloud, her voice echoing in the vast space. Wise word for someone so young. Zara spun around, the book tumbling from her hands. A man stood in the doorway, tall, impeccably dressed, with piercing blue eyes that seemed to see straight through her carefully constructed walls. Marcus Blackwood, the heir to the empire she now served. Their eyes met across the library, and something electric passed between them. Something dangerous. Something that would change both their lives forever. 3 weeks later, Marcus found himself making excuses to work late, knowing Zara often spent evenings in the library. What started as casual encounters had evolved into something far more dangerous. Conversations that lasted until dawn, discussions that challenged everything he thought he knew about class and connection. "You disagree with Aristotle's view on happiness?" Marcus asked, settling into the leather chair across from her. Zara looked up from her book, those warm brown eyes sparkling with intellectual fire. "His concept assumes happiness comes from virtue and contemplation. But what about people fighting just to survive? Are they less deserving of fulfillment because they lack the luxury of philosophical reflection?" Her insights consistently caught him off guard. This woman, who supposedly came from nothing, possessed a depth of understanding that rivaled his Ivy League professors. She spoke 4 languages fluently, understood complex economic theories, and had opinions on art that revealed sophisticated taste. "Where did you study?" he asked one night, genuinely curious. "The School of Necessity," she replied, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Books were my escape when reality became too harsh." Marcus felt drawn to her in ways that terrified and exhilarated him. Unlike every other woman in his social circle, Zara never asked about his wealth, never angled for advantages. She treated him like a person, not a prize to be won. Their conversations moved from philosophy to dreams, from literature to the kind of future they each envisioned. Marcus discovered he could share thoughts with her that he'd never voiced to anyone. His suffocation under Victoria's control, his desire to use his wealth for meaningful change, his loneliness despite being surrounded by people. "You're not who I expected," he admitted during one late-night session. "Neither are you," she whispered back. The tension between them crackled like electricity. Every accidental touch, every shared laugh, every moment their eyes met felt charged with possibility and danger. From her bedroom window, Victoria Blackwood watched the library lights burn until dawn, her suspicions growing stronger with each passing night. She'd built her empire by eliminating threats before they could take root. Zara Martinez was about to become her biggest threat yet. Victoria Blackwood's manicured nails drummed against mahogany as she reviewed the private investigator's report. 3 weeks of surveillance had confirmed her worst fears. Her son was falling for the help. "Unacceptable," she hissed, throwing the photos across her desk. Images of Marcus and Zara deep in conversation, their body language screaming intimacy despite maintaining physical distance. She'd clawed her way from a Detroit trailer park to penthouse suites through sheer determination and strategic marriage. Every sacrifice, every calculated move, every alliance forged had been designed to secure the Blackwood legacy. She wouldn't watch it crumble because her son developed feelings for some random foster child. "Marcus!" Her voice echoed through the mansion as she stormed toward the library. She found them exactly as expected, sitting too close, sharing a book, completely absorbed in each other's presence. The sight made her stomach churn with rage. "Your presence is required in my office." Immediately, Marcus looked up, his expression shifting from contentment to resignation. "Mother, we were just..." "Now." Zara rose gracefully, gathering her book. "I should return to my duties." Victoria's eyes followed the young woman's movements, noting the unconscious elegance in her posture, the refined way she held herself. These observations only fueled her anger. Servants shouldn't carry themselves like royalty. Once alone, Victoria unleashed 24 years of maternal control. "Have you lost your mind? Do you understand what you're risking for some temporary infatuation?" "She's not some temporary anything," Marcus shot back, his voice carrying new steel. "Zara is intelligent, compassionate, real. Everything the women you parade in front of me are not. She's a gold digger, a nobody with nothing to offer except a pretty face and calculated charm. You don't know her. I know her type." Victoria's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Poor girls who see wealthy men as lottery tickets. They study you, learn what you want to hear, become whatever you need them to be. That's not Zara. Prove it. Have her investigated properly. Check her background, her motives, her real agenda. If she's truly what you believe, the investigation will clear her." Marcus hesitated, and Victoria pressed her advantage. "Unless you're afraid of what we might discover." The challenge hung between them like a blade, cutting deeper than either realized. Dr. Robert Chun frowned at the laboratory results spread across his desk. In 30 years of practice, he'd never encountered blood work quite like this. The genetic markers belonged to a classification so rare that fewer than 200 people worldwide carried them. Zara Martinez sat across from him, her emerald dress a stark contrast to the sterile white office. She'd come for routine blood work after experiencing dizzy spells and fatigue, symptoms she'd attributed to working multiple jobs and poor sleep. "Your results show some unusual markers," Dr. Chun said carefully. "Nothing dangerous, but rare enough that I'd like to prescribe a medical alert bracelet as a precaution." What kind of markers? Zara asked, her brow furrowing with concern. A genetic variation that affects blood, clotting, and medication responses. It's inherited, found only in certain bloodlines. He paused, studying her features with newfound interest. Do you know anything about your biological family? Zara's laugh held no humor. I was found abandoned as a baby in Spain. No family history, no medical records, no answers to any questions that matter. Dr. Chen nodded, though something nagged at his memory. These particular markers, he'd seen them before, years ago, in a case that had haunted him. A desperate search for a missing child. A heartbroken grandfather who'd spent millions trying to find his lost granddaughter. The bracelet is just precautionary, he assured her, though his mind raced with possibilities that seemed impossible. Were it always? If you're ever in an accident or medical emergency, it could save your life. That night, alone in her small apartment, Zara examined the silver bracelet with its medical alert symbol. Such a simple thing, yet Dr. Chun had seemed unusually serious about its importance. She touched the cool metal, and for a moment, fragments of memory flickered through her mind. A woman with kind eyes singing Spanish lullabies, the scent of expensive perfume, hands with elegant rings reaching for her. Then the memories vanished, leaving her with the same emptiness that had followed her since childhood. 3 floors above, Dr. Chun sat in his study, staring at a framed photograph from 22 years ago. Lord Edmund Ashford holding his infant granddaughter, both smiling at the camera just days before the kidnapping that tore their family apart. The resemblance was impossible to ignore. 6 months later, Marcus Blackwood stood before his mother in open rebellion for the first time in his life. The investigation she demanded had backfired spectacularly. Instead of finding dirt on Zara, it had revealed academic achievements that made no sense for someone from her supposed background. "I'm marrying her," Marcus announced, his voice steady despite the storm brewing in Victoria's eyes. "Over my dead body, if necessary." The words hung in the air like a declaration of war. Victoria's face went white, then red, her carefully maintained composure cracking for the first time in decades. "I will cut you off completely. Every trust fund, every inheritance, every connection I've built for this family, gone." "Keep it all," Marcus replied. "I built my own fortune. I don't need your money or your approval." Victoria's laugh was sharp as broken glass. "You think love conquers all? You're a naive child playing with forces you don't understand." "I understand enough. I love her, and she loves me. That's all that matters." The wedding took place 3 weeks later in a small chapel downtown. Victoria's absence was felt like a wound, but Marcus refused to let his mother's hatred poison the happiest day of his life. Zara looked radiant in simple white silk, her beauty needing no enhancement from expensive jewels or designer gowns. "I promise to protect you from everything," Marcus whispered as they exchanged vows. "Nothing will ever hurt you while I'm alive." If only he'd known his greatest threat lived under his own roof. 8 months of blissful defiance followed. Zara transformed their penthouse into a home filled with laughter, books, and the kind of joy Marcus had never experienced. She tutored underprivileged children on weekends, donated anonymously to foster care facilities, and brought warmth to every room she entered. When Zara announced her pregnancy, Marcus felt his world complete itself. Finally, he would have a family built on love rather than obligation. But Victoria Blackwood wasn't finished. The news of her son's impending fatherhood triggered something dark and desperate in her carefully controlled mind. If she couldn't control Marcus, she would eliminate the source of his rebellion. Some mothers would kill to protect their children. Victoria was about to kill to control hers. Across the Atlantic, Lord Edmund Ashford began each morning the same way he had for 22 years, reviewing files in his private study, searching for any trace of his missing granddaughter, Sophia Catherine Ashford, born March 15, 2003, kidnapped at 8 months old during a family vacation in Barcelona. Her mother's body had been found 3 days later, but Sophia vanished without a trace, as if the earth had swallowed her whole. The Ashford fortune, built over 5 centuries of banking and investments, meant nothing without family to inherit it. Edmund had spent over $200 million on private investigators, rewards, and search operations across 3 continents. Every lead had turned cold. Every hope had crumbled. At 78, he felt time slipping away like sand through his fingers. "Any updates from the Spanish investigators?" he asked his assistant, though he already knew the answer. "Nothing new, sir. But the genetic tracking technology you invested in is showing promise. If Sophia is alive and ever requires medical attention." Edmund nodded, clinging to possibilities that grew thinner each year. The Ashford genetic markers were so rare they created a biological fingerprint. If his granddaughter lived, if she ever needed emergency medical care, those markers would identify her instantly. His phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Dr. Chun in Chicago, the physician he'd retained decades ago to monitor genetic databases worldwide. Possible match identified. Sending details now. Edmund's heart hammered as he opened the attached files. A young woman named Zara Martinez, age 21, recently prescribed medical alert bracelet for Ashford syndrome markers. Abandoned as infant in Spain, timing consistent with Sophia's disappearance. The photograph made his breath catch. She had Catherine's eyes, his late daughter's delicate bone structure, the same elegant way of holding her head that had been passed down through generations of Ashford women. "Book the next flight to Chicago," Edmund told his assistant, his voice trembling with 22 years of accumulated hope and fear. Victoria Blackwood had spent months planning to destroy the woman she saw as a threat to her family's legacy. She had no idea she was about to wage war against the most powerful banking dynasty in Europe. Victoria Blackwood sat in her Mercedes, watching the truck driver count the cash she'd just handed him. $50,000 to stage an accident. Another $50,000 to disappear afterward and never speak of their arrangement. "Make it look random," she instructed, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was planning. A tragic accident on Highway 94, where the road curves near Miller's Creek. Poor visibility, unfortunate timing. The driver, a man whose gambling debts had made him desperate enough to accept her offer, nodded nervously. "And you're sure she'll be driving that route?" Every Tuesday at 2 p.m., she visits the Children's Hospital to read to patients. Predictable schedule, isolated road. Victoria's smile was ice cold. Perfect conditions for an unfortunate accident. She'd spent weeks studying Zara's routine, mapping every detail of her life. The pregnancy had made her schedule even more predictable. Regular doctor appointments, volunteer work, the same routes traveled at the same times. Marcus was in New York closing a major acquisition, completely unaware of the danger circling his wife. Victoria had planned it that way, ensuring he'd have the perfect alibi while she solved their family problem permanently. "What if she survives?" the driver asked. "She won't." Victoria's tone carried absolute certainty. "Your truck weighs 18 tons. Her car weighs 2. Physics will handle the rest." As she drove away from the meeting, Victoria felt the same calm satisfaction she'd experienced when eliminating business competitors. Sometimes decisive action required getting your hands dirty. The Blackwood legacy was worth any price, including the life of one insignificant girl who'd had the audacity to seduce her son. 20 miles away, Zara Blackwood, she still felt a thrill using her married name, prepared for her weekly visit to the Children's Hospital. The volunteer work filled her heart in ways that mansion luxury never could. These children, fighting battles far greater than her own, reminded her daily of what truly mattered. She touched her growing belly, imagining the day she'd bring her own child to meet these brave young fighters. "Ready for an adventure, little one?" she whispered, grabbing her car keys. If she'd known what waited on Highway 94, she might have stayed home. But fate rarely warns its victims. The collision happened at 2:17 p.m. on a gray Tuesday afternoon. Zara saw the truck veer in her lane with impossible speed, its massive front grille filling her windshield like a metallic monster. Time slowed as she yanked the steering wheel right, but physics had already claimed victory. 18 tons of steel met 2 tons of luxury sedan with devastating force. Her world exploded into spinning metal, shattering glass, and the sickening sound of her car rolling down the embankment. Pain lanced through her body as she fought to stay conscious, her hands instinctively protecting her unborn child. The first responders arrived within minutes. A stroke of luck that would prove more significant than anyone realized. Among them was Dr. Robert Chun, returning from a medical conference when he heard the emergency dispatch. Female, early 20s, pregnant, unconscious but breathing. The paramedic called out as they worked to extract Zara from the wreckage. Possible internal bleeding, definite head trauma. Dr. Chin's blood ran cold when he saw the victim's face. Zara Martinez, now Blackwood, the young woman whose blood work had haunted his thoughts for months. "I know her," he said, taking charge of the medical response. "She has a rare genetic condition. We need to get her to Chicago General immediately." As they stabilized her for transport, Dr. Chin noticed the medical alert bracelet he'd prescribed. Now bent and partially torn from the impact, but still visible enough to read. The sight sent ice through his veins. If his suspicions were correct, they weren't just trying to save any accident victim. They were potentially saving the missing Ashford heiress, the granddaughter Lord Edmund had been desperately seeking for over 2 decades. Victoria Blackwood arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later, her performance as the concerned mother-in-law flawless despite the chaos raging in her mind. She'd expected to receive news of a fatal accident, not watch emergency teams fighting to save the woman she tried to eliminate. "How did you know about the accident so quickly?" Dr. Chin asked, studying Victoria's face with new suspicion. Marcus asked me to check on Zara when she didn't return his calls." Victoria lied smoothly. But Dr. Chun was already reaching for his phone, dialing a number he'd memorized 22 years ago. "Lord Ashford, this is Dr. Chun in Chicago. I believe I found Sophia." The words that Edmund Ashford had dreamed of hearing for 22 years arrived while he was boarding his private jet. His legs buckled, forcing him to grip the aircraft's doorframe for support. "Are you certain?" His voice cracked with decades of suppressed hope. "She's in surgery now. The genetic markers match perfectly. And sir, she looks exactly like your daughter Catherine." Edmund closed his eyes, Catherine's face flooding his memory. His brilliant daughter who died, trying to protect her baby from kidnappers in Barcelona. If this woman truly was Sophia, she was all that remained of Catherine's legacy. "I'm already en route to Chicago. Don't let her out of your sight." In the hospital corridor, Victoria Blackwood paced like a caged predator, her carefully constructed world crumbling with each passing minute. The accident was supposed to solve her problem permanently, not create a medical emergency that brought unwanted attention. Marcus burst through the hospital doors, his face pale with terror. "Where is she? How bad is it?" "The doctors are doing everything they can," Victoria said, her performance flawless despite the chaos in her mind. "You said she was in an accident. What happened?" "A truck ran her off Highway 94. The driver fled the scene." Each lie came easier than the last, 20 years of corporate manipulation making deception feel natural. Dr. Chun emerged from the surgical wing, his expression grave. "She's stable, but we need to discuss her medical history. There are complications related to her genetic condition." "What genetic condition?" Marcus demanded. "The Ashford syndrome markers in her blood. I prescribed the medical alert bracelet months ago, but she never mentioned any family history of Ashford." Victoria's blood turned to ice. Extremely rare genetic variation, found in fewer than 200 people worldwide, all traced to the British Ashford banking family. Dr. Chin studied their faces carefully. "I've contacted Lord Edmund Ashford. He's been searching for his missing granddaughter for over 2 decades. The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus looked confused, Victoria looked horrified, and Dr. Chin looked increasingly suspicious about the timing of this accident. "That's impossible," Victoria whispered. "She's nobody, a foster child from Spain." "Spain?" Dr. Chin's eyes sharpened. "That's where the Ashford granddaughter disappeared. Same age, same time frame. same genetic markers. As if summoned by their conversation, Lord Edmund Ashford strode through the hospital entrance, flanked by security and assistants. At 78, he still commanded attention with his silver hair, piercing gray eyes, and the unmistakable bearing of old money and older power. His gaze locked onto Victoria Blackwood, recognition flashing between them like lightning. "Hello, Victoria. Fancy meeting you here." The tension in that hospital corridor could have cut diamonds. Lord Edmund Ashford and Victoria Blackwood faced each other like generals from opposing armies, their business rivalry spanning decades of corporate warfare. But this wasn't about market shares or hostile takeovers. This was about family, blood, and a missing child who might connect their empires forever. "Edmund," Victoria said, her voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. "What brings you to Chicago?" "My granddaughter, apparently." His gray eyes held the sharp intelligence that had built a $50 billion empire. "Though I suspect you already know why I'm here." Marcus stepped between them, confusion written across his face. "Would someone please explain what's happening? My wife is fighting for her life, and you're both acting like this is some business meeting." "Your wife," Edmund said slowly, "may be my missing granddaughter, Sophia Catherine Ashford, kidnapped as an infant 22 years ago." The words hit Marcus like physical blows. "That's impossible. Zara grew up in foster care. She doesn't have family, because her family thought she was dead." Edmund's voice carried the weight of 2 decades of grief. "Until Dr. Chun discovered genetic markers that exist in exactly one bloodline on Earth." Victoria's mind raced through calculations and contingencies. If Zara truly was an Ashford, everything she'd worked to build would crumble. The girl she'd tried to eliminate wasn't some random threat. She was the heir to a fortune that dwarfed the Blackwood wealth. Worse, Edmund Ashford was ruthless enough to destroy anyone who threatened his family. And Victoria had just tried to murder his granddaughter. "The truck driver who caused the accident," Dr. Chin said quietly. "Security cameras caught his license plate. Police are tracking him down as we speak." Victoria's blood pressure spiked. If they found the driver, if he talked, if they traced the money back to her. "Accidents happen," she said carefully. "Highway 94 is notorious for poor visibility, especially when someone pays drivers to cause them," Edmund replied, his tone casual, but his eyes deadly. "I've dealt with corporate assassination attempts before, Victoria. I know the signs." Marcus stared at his mother in growing horror. "What is he talking about?" "Nothing. Business competitors often make wild accusations when." "The driver confessed an hour ago," Detective Morrison announced, approaching their group with handcuffs visible on his belt. $50,000 in cash to stage an accident, $50,000 more to disappear. He kept detailed records of the transaction. Victoria Blackwood, the woman who'd climbed from poverty to power through sheer determination, felt her empire collapse in real time. "Victoria Blackwood, you're under arrest for attempted murder." The arrest of Victoria Blackwood sent shockwaves through Chicago's business community, but nothing compared to the earthquake building inside Marcus's soul. As his mother was led away in handcuffs, the foundation of his entire world cracked beneath his feet. "She tried to kill my wife," he whispered, the words feeling foreign on his tongue. "My own mother tried to kill Zara." Lord Edmund placed a surprisingly gentle hand on Marcus's shoulder. "Evil wears many faces, son, sometimes the most beautiful ones." The media descended like vultures within hours. Billionaire matriarch arrested for attempted murder. British banking heir found alive after 22 years. Blackwood empire in crisis. But the real drama was happening in Zara's hospital room, where she drifted between consciousness and dreams filled with fragments of memories she'd never understood. A woman singing Spanish lullabies, strong arms lifting her high into the air, the scent of expensive cologne and the sound of deep, loving laughter. "Grandfather?" she whispered when she finally woke to find Edmund sitting beside her bed. The word hit him like a physical blow. 22 years of searching, hoping, praying, and his granddaughter's first word to him was the one he'd longed to hear. "Yes, darling, I'm here. I've been looking for you since the day you disappeared." Tears streamed down both their faces as fragments of Zara's buried past began surfacing. The kidnapping. The terrified kidnappers who abandoned her at a Spanish orphanage when her crying became too much to handle. The foster families who never quite understood why she seemed so different from other children. "I always felt like I didn't belong anywhere," she said softly. "Like I was waiting for something I couldn't name." "You were waiting to come home." Marcus watched this reunion with a mixture of joy and terror. Joy that Zara had found her family. Terror about what it meant for their future. The Ashford fortune made his billions look like pocket change. Would she still want the life they'd built together? But his biggest fear materialized when FBI agents arrived with more evidence of Victoria's crimes. The investigation revealed a pattern of corporate sabotage going back 15 years, Agent Carter explained. "Your mother used similar methods to eliminate business rivals. 3 suspicious accidents, 2 mysterious deaths, all connected to threats against Blackwood Industries." Marcus felt his world continue crumbling. His mother wasn't just a control freak. She was a serial killer who'd been eliminating obstacles to power for decades. The woman who'd raised him, who'd taught him about success and legacy, was a monster wearing his mother's face. Victoria Blackwood sat in her jail cell, her designer suit replaced with orange cotton, her perfectly styled hair hanging limp around her shoulders. But her eyes still burned with the fierce intelligence that had built an empire from nothing. She lost one battle, not the war. "I want to make a deal," she told her lawyer when he arrived with bail arrangements. Full confession in exchange for reduced charges. "Victoria, with the evidence they have nothing without my testimony. I know where the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively." Her smile was sharp as broken glass. "Edmund Ashford thinks he's won, but I've been playing this game longer than that pompous old fool." What she didn't tell her lawyer was the real reason for her desperation. Hidden in offshore accounts and shell corporations, she'd been moving Blackwood assets for months, preparing for the possibility of discovery. If she could delay prosecution long enough, she could disappear with enough money to start over in a country without extradition. But Marcus was making that impossible. "I'm freezing all corporate accounts pending investigation," he announced to the board of directors. "Every transaction, every payment, every penny moves through compliance review." The betrayal cut deeper than any business loss. Her own son, the child she'd sacrificed everything to protect, was actively working to destroy her escape routes. "You don't understand what I did for you," she screamed during their final confrontation in the jail's visiting room. "Everything I built, every person I eliminated, every deal I made, it was all for you. You tried to murder my wife and unborn child," Marcus replied, his voice hollow with grief. "There's no justification for that. She's not even your wife. She's an Ashford spy sent to infiltrate our family. She's a woman who was abandoned as a baby and fought her entire life to survive. The only spy here is you, spying on your own son's happiness and trying to destroy it." Victoria's last card was the cruelest one. "You think that baby she's carrying is yours? A girl like that, with her background? How do you know?" Marcus stood and walked away, leaving his mother screaming accusations at his retreating form. Outside the jail, he found Edmund and Zara waiting in the limousine. She was still pale from her injuries, but her eyes held strength that reminded him why he'd fallen in love with her. "It's over," he said simply, but they all knew Victoria Blackwood would fight until her final breath, and cornered predators were always the most dangerous. 6 months later, Victoria Blackwood stood before Judge Harrison as he read her sentence. 25 years to life for attempted murder, conspiracy, and a dozen other charges that FBI investigation had uncovered. She showed no remorse, no tears, no acknowledgement of the lives she destroyed in her climb to power. Even in defeat, she maintained the cold calculation that had defined her existence. This court finds the defendant's actions to represent a pattern of criminal behavior spanning decades, Judge Harrison declared. The attempt on Zara Blackwood's life was not an isolated incident, but the culmination of a career built on eliminating obstacles through violence. Marcus sat in the gallery beside his wife, their newborn daughter sleeping peacefully in Zara's arms. Little Catherine, named for Zara's mother, represented everything Victoria had tried to prevent, a bridge between two powerful families, a symbol of love conquering greed. The baby had been born healthy despite the trauma of the accident, her arrival bringing joy that helped heal some of the wounds Victoria's actions had created. "Do you have any final words for the court?" the judge asked. Victoria stood, her spine straight despite the orange jumpsuit and shackles. "I regret nothing. I protected my family's legacy the only way I knew how." Even now, she couldn't see the twisted logic of her actions, trying to protect her son by murdering his wife and child. After the sentencing, the extended family gathered at the Ashford estate. Lord Edmund had insisted on hosting, wanting to celebrate justice and new beginnings under the same roof. 22 years, I searched for you," he told Zara as they walked through gardens that had been planted in memory of her mother. "I never imagined you'd return to me as a mother yourself." Marcus watched his wife reconnect with her heritage, learning family stories and traditions she'd never known existed. The Ashford wealth meant their daughter would never face the struggles Zara had endured. But more importantly, Catherine would grow up surrounded by family who loved her unconditionally. "Do you forgive her?" Zara asked Marcus during a quiet moment on the estate's terrace. He considered the question that had haunted him for months. Victoria had given him life, raised him, taught him everything about business and success. She'd also tried to murder the woman he loved. "I forgive the mother who raised me," he said finally, "but I can never forgive the monster she became." Zara squeezed his hand, understanding the impossible complexity of loving someone who'd committed unforgivable acts. Some wounds heal with time. Others serve as permanent reminders of how love and evil can exist in the same heart, and why choosing between them defines who we really are. 2 years after Victoria's sentencing, the Blackwood-Ashford alliance had transformed both empires in ways no one could have predicted. Marcus integrated Blackwood Industries with Ashford Holdings, creating a technology banking hybrid that revolutionized how wealth was managed and distributed. Their first joint venture was a foundation providing educational opportunities for foster children, Zara's idea, funded by both family fortunes. "Every child deserves to know they matter," she explained to reporters at the foundation's launch. "I spent 21 years believing I was nobody. No child should carry that burden." Lord Edmund, now in his 80s, had found new purpose in his role as great-grandfather. Little Catherine brought laughter back to the Ashford estate, her presence healing wounds that decades of searching couldn't touch. "She has your mother's eyes," he told Zara as they watched the toddler chase butterflies in the garden. "Catherine would be so proud of the woman you've become." The business world had initially predicted disaster when two competing dynasties merged, but the combination of Ashford tradition and Blackwood innovation created opportunities neither family could have achieved alone. Their joint ventures in sustainable technology and financial inclusion changed entire industries. But the most significant change was personal. Marcus had learned to distinguish between family loyalty and blind obedience. Zara had discovered that belonging wasn't something you earned. It was something you accepted when love was offered freely. Their second child, a son they named Edmund Marcus, arrived on a spring morning that seemed to symbolize rebirth for everyone involved. Two children with two family legacies, Zara mused as she nursed her son while Catherine played at their feet. They'll never wonder where they come from or whether they belong. Victoria Blackwood remained in prison, her appeals denied, her empire distributed among charities she would have despised. She'd written letters to Marcus that he'd never opened, messages that her lawyer said contained apologies and explanations. Some bridges, once burned, could never be rebuilt. "Do you think she understands what she lost?" Zara asked during one of their conversations about Victoria. "She lost the chance to know her grandchildren," Marcus replied. "She chose power over love, control over connection. I think that's punishment enough." The story that began with greed and attempted murder had transformed into something neither Victoria nor her victims could have imagined. A testament to the power of truth over deception, love over control, and family bonds that transcend both blood and wealth. In the end, Victoria Blackwood's greatest failure wasn't trying to destroy Zara. It was never understanding that the strongest empires are built on love, not fear.